Well,
Well,
so
yesterday.
the big story today, Trav.
Oh,
Silver Lake back at it in the St. Barbara saga. So let's give a bit of a scope of what's going on today. Silver Lake, it was in the papers yesterday that something was about to happen today, a revised deal. So they've put out a revised proposal, but the revised portion of it is that the Taurus debt facility won't require technical due diligence.
Correct.
So it seems that it only requires this legal due diligence. So it sounds like they just sign off on the DD that Silver Lake do if they get let in the door. But the big thing in this announcement on the bottom of the first page is that Silver Lake have set up a hotline, a 1300 number for St. Barbara shareholders to use to call and get information on Silver Lake's proposal.
to be clear, I don't think that's the big news in the announcement. I think that's the big news to us because we found it very entertaining, but it's really not the big news of the announcement.
I think it's a big. And so we've tried to call this number.
We have, mate, we've become St. Barbara shareholders.
Well, Trav has now got skin in the game. Ding, ding, ding. Trav has an interest in St. Barbara.
Disclosure, full disclosure, $500 of shares.
Well, we tried to buy one share and we're going to cop the $10-20 brokerage, but minimum transaction from not owning it is $500 worth. So,
Indeed, mate.
and I wasn't going to tip it in.
Yeah.
Trav's got a bit more of a financial runway than me.
Before we go there, though, Matty, can I dial it back just a bit more, right? So late afternoon yesterday, the Silver Lake, they come out with this announcement in relation to their sugar zone operation in Canada. And that's temporarily been evacuated due to the risk of nearby bushfire. So that one came out late arvo. And then, as you mentioned, there's that article in the AFR from Peter Kerr last night reporting that there's another one of St. Barbara's top 20 shareholders, Jeff Cranfield, saying that he wants the St. Barbara board to grant DD effectively. So that makes L1, Baker Steel, and now Jeff Cranfield, all top 20 shareholders, all the statements in the public domain critiquing the St. Barbara board now.
What's Jeff own, about 1%?
Well, they don't disclose the number, but you can, like, they just call them a top 20, and the top 20 sort of, filters down a bit. And so I imagine it's probably sub one is my guess.
They got an extra one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, mate, 3 of the top 20 is like, it's still like, you can't ignore that.
No.
So, I mean, if like, heck, if you were one of the top 20 shareholders of a company you own, Matty, you'd hope the board were listening to you.
Oh, they'd better be on the blower, mate.
Exactly. So also in this article, though, there's some leaked emails between the respective chairmen at the time, and it all just looks a bit ugly, doesn't it?
Right. Let's get on to the email. So the email excerpt came out in today's announcement, but it was leaked on the AFR Monday night. Peter Kerr did an article Monday at 8:20 p.m. And this email reads, and it's from David Quinlivan from Silver Lake to Tim Netcher, the ex-chairman of St. Barbara, last year. And the email was expressing interest. It doesn't say what Netcher has, what Quinlivan has wrote to Netcher, but the response from Netcher reads, "Thanks for your email, which I have discussed with senior members of our executive team, our board of directors, and our financial advisors. Thank you for your ongoing interest in St. Barbara. As I'm sure you would understand, the St. Barbara team has limited internal resources which are fully committed to a number of high priority projects. As such, we are unable to justify the redeployment or distraction of these resources from their current activities in order to engage with Silver Lake at this time." Pretty much a big F you, go away.
Yeah, I mean, mate, it's strange. Like, Tim's not chairperson of St. Barbara anymore, but if he was, he'd be under a bit of pressure because it's a pretty strange response. You don't know what the email to him was, right? Like, it could have just been like if we fill in the blanks, it's probably St. Barbara expressing interest, and they've basically gotten a no before, instead of an invitation to submit an offer, they've gotten a no.
Well, as you said before to me, what you'd expect to be a stock standard reply would be like, "Thank you for your interest. Please submit a proposal."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And we'll consider honest merit. But this was, I don't know what the email was before. So but it's a pretty strange one.
Yes, because they've obviously taken one email. This is the one email they've found. It obviously supports this side, but we don't know what the email was that was sent.
Yeah.
But you would think if you could hypothesize that the email sent was an attempt to engage, you think the reply would be, yes, please submit a proposal, as you said, and we'll consider it on its merit.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
I know. And like we're in the, now we're in a situation in a bloody hostile asset deal where emails are not just getting, leaked to reporters, they're also getting pasted into ASX announcements. And it all feels a bit icky. So, and I'm sure our listeners, are a little bit sick of us talking about it. So we're trying to have some fun with it too, Matty.
And well, speaking of fun, we'll get to what the change in the legal DD for Taurus means, but we attempted to call the hotline and post being a shareholder now, Trav, you have a vested interest in how this deal goes. Like,
mate,
I don't want to see your $500 go down.
I think we should play the bit of me becoming a shareholder. We'll play that in the show. What do you reckon?
Why not?
Yeah.
Right. Here it is there. And we could actually put in the bit where we then give them a buzz. So here we go. Trav, the momentous occasion of becoming a St. Barbara shareholder. Here we go. Trav.
Hey, mate. How are you?
What investment strategies have you got today?
Well, I'm buying St. Barbara shares, mate.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a bit of an odd move.
I'm a bit disappointed. I thought we could buy just one share, but the ASX basically doesn't let you buy just one share if you don't own it yet. You have to buy a minimum $500 parcel. So I'm forking out the big bucks here, mate, and I'm becoming a St. Barbara shareholder today.
Why would you choose to do this?
I'm pretty invested in this deal. And
Nothing to do with the hotline?
I want to be able to exercise my rights as a St. Barbara shareholder. I just think it's, the right way to go about things.
Righto, here we go.
Yeah, I've got to put my pin in, mate. Hang on.
Oh, I better not show that.
Oh, N7. Submit order. Oh, incorrect pin. What's going on here?
Oh, don't say it out loud.
Order submitted. Oh,
Congratulations, Trav. You're now St. Barbara shareholder.
wow.
How do you feel?
Disappointed.
Opportunities.
Perpetually disappointed.
You're already down.
Maybe
right,
now-
let's get on the now. Let's give everyone. We're going to call the hotline. Check the Silver Lake announcement. There's a hotline. We're calling it. We are now St. Barbara shareholders. Now, Trav, first, congratulations.
Thank you, mate.
On being a shareholder. One of probably your least significant holdings in terms of monetary value, but look, I guess how deep we are in this deal, like it holds the St. Barbara shareholding probably holds a special place.
Yeah, it dwarfs in comparison to the value of my equity in Money of Mine podcast, mate. But other than that, it's a substantial holding of mine. So I'm feeling a bit, disgruntled as a St. Barbara shareholder, and I'm keen to express my feelings validly now.
And I thought since you're a shareholder now, you have the ability to call the hotline that has been provided. As you see on the bottom of page 1 here, there is a 1300 number that Silver Lake have set up for St. Barbara shareholders to call and get more information on the Silver Lake proposal, which could assist them in gathering the best amount of information to vote accordingly in the end of June for the Genesis transaction. So, Trav, being a shareholder, you decided to give him a ring.
We did. We gave him a call. Yep.
Here's what happened. Here's the hotline. 1300 641 380.
Let's give it a buzz, mate. Let's see what happens
Your
here.
call could not be connected. Please check the number and try again.
We now have a disgruntled St. Barbara shareholder here.
Check the number and try again.
Interesting one, Matty. We've since had word that the issue there, the disconnection issue there, it's only applicable to those of us who have a Telstra mobile. That particular one,
Probably
300 connection.
90% of the country.
Nah, it's not.
I'm Telstra. You're obviously Telstra.
Yeah, because we're country people, mate.
Ah.
But most Perth people don't go Telstra because it's more expensive.
Don't they?
No.
Is that right? We should do a Telstra survey. Listeners, let us know who you shop with on your telephones. We'll do a bit of a survey. So we're going to try and give it a ring later. And
let's do it now.
Hopefully get back on. Give him another go, Trav.
All right,
Oh.
mate. That was a pretty good phone call. We can't play it because got to get consent to play a phone call. So, but
Oh, I
we can
guess,
talk about it.
Well, one comment from a YouTube fan was maybe the same number was used. St. Barbara sent the same number to Silver Lake to call in for DD.
Oh, that's funny.
That's why it didn't work. So
That's
maybe they
funny.
were Telstra users.
That's
So
very.
maybe that's something that wasn't considered.
That's very funny. mate.
Plot of events.
Very, very funny.
So what did you get out of the call, Trav? You
Yeah.
had to talk because I'm not a St. Barbara shareholder.
Yes,
but,
correct. Yeah.
Look, you did have a bit of a conversation.
I did, mate. Yeah, it was a lovely conversation with an Irish bloke by the name of Brendan. His name and is on the announcement, obviously, and his email address. And so it's interesting, right? So they're like, he doesn't give advice or anything like that. It was just a pretty factual phone call, just sort of indicating what the options are to a St. Barbara shareholder, and that they should read as much as St. Barbara shareholders can. There was no kind of nudge to vote any certain way or anything like that.
But there was the nudge saying that Silver Lake are
Yes.
recommending that you vote against the Genesis
Yeah.
deal to then allow
Yeah.
Silver Lake to come in.
Yeah, well, he didn't nudge that. He said Silver Lake have
Silver Lake
there's-
are recommending.
read all the documentations, and one of those documents is the Silver Lake announcement that came out today. And when I pushed him on the on that point, that Silver Lake had indicated that you should vote against in that situation. I kind of pushed him on the point of but then there's some deal risk, et cetera, and he said that's absolutely a consideration, and you should factor that into any decision you make. So it wasn't. It didn't come across as a bloke who's being paid to sell a story. It's a bloke who's paid to inform shareholders for the rights that they have as shareholders, but he's not allowed to give advice.
Okay, so go into the deal risk, Trav. What is the deal risk? And go through the sequence of events.
Even before that, right? So let's talk strategy of having the hotline, right? Because think why do you have this hotline? Well, it's because it actually gives Silver Lake a direct phone line access to the retail shareholders of St. Barbara. St. Barbara's got a big long tail of retail shareholders. It's all convoluted because they did this Bardock scheme as well. So there's a whole bunch of people there that you don't really know, and you don't have a good line of communication to at all. But this, what the hotline does is it actually gives them a direct line of communication to them to actually sort of encourage them to be more informed about the vote that they end up doing. So it's just basically trying to build shareholder support, but it's focusing on the low end of town because they're probably feeling like they've come up stumps at the top end of town.
Okay, but how do you think it's going to be received from St. Barbara shareholders where if they ring this hotline and they're wanting, because they're going to be asking, look, we want to know what the plan is, how this is going to work, what's the plan for Gwale, but how do you think they're going to feel when they ring up, but they can't get given any of that information? They more just get...
Well, they're told to read as much as they can. I mean, heck, that's what you and I have done, mate. We're not asking for advice. We're you and I have read all the announcements that have come out and just making an informed decision based on the information in front of us, like any shareholder should do. And as a shareholder now, that's what I'm going to do.
Yes. And now, what are you going to do after that phone call, Trav? How are you going to vote as a shareholder? Depending on
it does depend. So it does depend. I think as a shareholder, I want to see the St. Barbara board open up DD. But how I would vote actually does depend on whether or not that door gets opened up or not.
Okay, and why is that?
Well, because it's basically mate, the board is what are they doing? So do they keep sort of so what have Silver Lake done in this announcement? They've actually created some parameters around being able to complete a due diligence process by a defined period of time, and if they don't do it, no deal. So they're basically saying, if you let us in the door before the 5th of June, we'll be able to complete it and have a binding offer in front of shareholders before they go to vote on the Genesis transaction. If they can't get their stuff together before that date, no deal. So they're basically saying, we are capable of doing DD in 2 weeks. Because the whole argument for a long time has been, we don't trust that you're going to be able to get it done in 2 weeks. Well, now they're saying, we have to, otherwise, what are people going to vote on? So, the whole timeline argument from the St. Barbara side of things is null and void, because if they don't get the DD done in 2 weeks, then of course they're not going to expect to get the asset. It's just a bizarre thing, right? But as a St. Barbara shareholder, when it comes time to vote on the deal. I would much rather there be 2 deals on the table to choose between.
Okay, so now let's say hypothetically they do not get let in the door
Yep.
before June 5th.
Yep.
And it gets to the Genesis vote. Their non-binding proposal is still there, but there is only the actual binding proposal of Genesis in there. The vote happens.
I vote for the Genesis deal.
Yeah. And why is that?
Because it's just deal risk at that point. Like I hope it, like, you know, for St. Barbara shareholders' sakes, like I hope it doesn't get to that point. You know, you hope there's some, like an avenue in for some sort of like rational consideration, but you don't expect it given the hardline approach of the St. Barbara board to date, and everything sort of just, all of the rhetoric to date just seems to be saving face rather than reevaluating prior perspectives, and that's on both sides. So I don't expect them to change their mind. I hope they do. Don't expect them to do it. And if it gets to that, then you vote for the Genesis transaction because you don't want the deal risk.
And what if by any chance the Genesis deal gets voted against and there is no binding offer in from Silver Lake? What's the risk to the whole situation then?
Like in that situation, yeah, and that would be the worry I would have if it got to if St. Barbara didn't just let them into DD, then it gets voted down, then that's the deal risk you're worried about, right? Because it's like yes, you've been told over and over that Silver Lake are interested, and sounds like they are, but there's probably a period of just uncertainty because of the financial stress element, and the and the fact that the binding piece isn't there yet. So
because Silver Lake could then put a binding offer in, because Genesis are out of the picture then if they get voted against. Silver Lake could then put a binding offer in that is lower in value because there's no binding offer on the table then.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So everything that they're going to do is going to be subject to technical DD, which they haven't had any access to yet. Yeah, but you can see their intent.
Now, that's
right?
where the deal risk is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, let's just talk about the Silver Lake strategy thing. We talked about the rumor that they're agitators and everything, and what you've seen them to do today. They haven't come out with an extra $100 million offer, right? So I think that kind of squashes the whole agitator rumor that was in the market, because if they wanted to agitate, they'd offer an extra $100 million. They haven't. They've just improved the conditionality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's get into that, Trav. The improved conditionality, I suppose the difference in today's offer, and you can discuss what that means for this DD process. So this is to do with the DD that Taurus, who are providing the debt facility, $150 million US debt facility. Take it away, Trav. Go through it.
Yeah. So
what is legal due diligence?
So they've removed. It's not subject to technical due diligence anymore. It's still subject to legal due diligence and execution of binding documentation. What do those 2 points mean? So, like, legal due diligence is basically, Taurus will still have to look at the tenements, ensure the tenements are all in good standing, ensure there's no encumbrances on those tenements. So they basically want to be able to check that there's no like royalty that no one knows about on any one of those tenements. It's pretty straightforward stuff. Like, it's not, but you can't actually find that out until St. Barbara open up the data room and you can run those checks. So, but it's like it's straightforward stuff. So from Taurus's perspective, right, you can understand why you have to keep that in there, because their security is still Gwalia. And what if there was like some royalty or something that no one knew about until it was too late? I'm sure it's not the case, right? It's all pretty, like, this stuff. Legal DD does not take long to do. It's pretty straightforward.
Are we talking like a day or less?
Yeah.
Okay, but if they, in the original conditions, what did that involve? So that involved Taurus going into the data room with Silver Lake, or
it involved
in parallel too?
Yeah, the cooperation bit was a bit unclear, but it basically said Taurus have to do their technical DD on it. I think in this revised one, what you would actually see in reality is Taurus sort of like piggyback off of Silver Lake's own sort of technical bit, but at least Taurus won't be putting the St. Barbara team under additional kind of just pressure, because they'll only be getting questions coming from Silver Lake as opposed to getting questions from Taurus and Silver Lake in that DD period. So it makes doing the DD a bit easier on the internal bandwidth of advisors, and also internal staff there at St Barbara if it got to that stage.
Yeah, and now there's been a bit of stuff on. A lot of people are getting a bit active on Twitter, including us. Sam Berridge put a tweet up saying, "I've asked around and I'm yet to find or hear of a single institutional SLR shareholder who is supportive of the SBM bid."
Sam Berridge, yep, like he's a
friend of the show,
friend of the pod.
He's an ex-guest,
friend of the pod. Yeah, but I mean, I think what this is the narrative that you saw in the St Barbara letter earlier. So like think of St Barbara's last rebuttal, right? What did they do? They focused on the conditionality of getting Silver Lake's shareholders to approve it. They didn't focus on the financing DD bit because they probably thought, well, they're half a chance to remove it. And they've kind of removed part of it here, right? They've removed part of that financing DD part. So what they were preempting was a defense centered around arguing, we don't know if your shareholders are going to approve it, but we do know that 49% of Genesis ones are going to approve it. I think it's a bizarre approach to have because everyone knows that Silver Lake's shareholders are indexes. They're just going to vote yes.
Is this a sarcastic tweet in a way? Sam saying,
I'm not sure
hasn't met a single institutional investor saying that Silver Lake don't have any or many institutional investors?
They do have institutional investors, but here's the counter argument, right? Silver Lake don't have an opposing deal to put forward to their shareholders yet in order to vote on it because they haven't been let in to put a deal forward. You can't ask your shareholders to provide support for a non-binding proposal. It's a bit strange. You have to have a real deal on the table yet, but they haven't been allowed in to do that. So, yeah.
Where does it go from here, Trav?
Oh, mate. Hopefully we can stop talking about it soon.
There must be another ace up the sleeve.
I mean, look, there probably could be. They could look to, let's just see, does St Barbara come out and they probably drag their feet and take longer to respond to it. You saw them, today just put out we've received it, so that they're buying their time for an extra day, dragging things out closer to the 5th of June. But 5th of June is the deadline, right, in order to sort of have Silver Lake in the door or not. At which point they're pretty limited. Silver Lake could buy shares, they could go unconditional. All these things seem a bit too out there.
So Silver Lake could then buy shares in St Barbara to then give them
to affect the vote.
Affect the vote. Or so post June 5, if they do not get it let in the door, you'd think one of the only aces other than buying shares is more money in the offer.
Yeah, but like the closer it gets, the harder it is for that to actually be compelling because, you just have to accept, you have to accept uncertainty in a deal. So it just becomes trickier the closer it gets to the deadline.
But if they've got it, but if you go beyond that June 5th point and they haven't let them in the door, the only way they're nearly then going to, taking into account the deal risk after that, the only way then they're going to nearly sway the St Barbara shareholders is having a higher or much higher value in that unconditional non-binding proposal.
Yeah, it's an option, but I don't think they're going to do it. They haven't come out with a higher bid today. They've come out with improved. I think they're going to be disciplined on value just because it looks like they really want it and they're not going to pay too much for it. So
I just can't. The way this is all panned out, I think there will be something happening all the way up until that. Is it 20th of June, 19th of June vote? 20th of June, I think it is. I think there's going to be little plays happening all the way up until that point. I can't see it going away.
But after the 5th of June, if they're not in the door, it's a much harder proposition for them because, like me, I'm pretty rational and logical. But even if there's not something secure on the table as a St Barbara shareholder, I'd vote the Genesis one in that situation. So it's much harder to sell, even to the shareholders who are disgruntled with the St Barbara board, and rightfully so. At that point, it'd be a bit harder sell to actually try and persuade them to vote no on the deal on the table at that point. You much just prefer St Barbara, let them in the front door, and then there's two deals to choose from.
The information contained in this episode of Money of Mine is of general nature only and does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. Before making any investment decision, you should consult with your financial advisor and consider how appropriate the advice is to your objectives, financial situation, and needs.